So we're talking about, so best form, and the way we'll do it is over 90 seconds. So if you think about it, we've got explosive strength at the start. So you do the first 10 strokes as fast as possible, but a good form like you would at start, and then you go into the strength endurance. So you've got explosive, you've got strength endurance, and you've got to think about it in terms of, if it's just 60 seconds, you could probably just brass it out for 60 seconds. But if you're doing 90 seconds, you've got to think a little bit more strategically. Yeah? That sort of thing. So, for example, if you said to me, I would come up with 6 exercises, and I've got 6 exercises like that, if nobody else. But what I'm saying is, tell me what you think. But given that we're coming out of restrictions, it's got to be an accessible exercise. An example that's not an accessible exercise, and a bad example of a selection thing, pull-ups. Pull-ups are fantastic exercises. Yeah, I love pull-ups. I've got a pull-up bar here, but a lot of you may not have a pull-up bar. And if I was in a squad last year and the year before, Senior B, and they decided, might have told you, 2 weeks before, they said, right, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to do pull-ups, maximum pull-ups in a minute. So if you like doing pull-ups, you'll do 12 or 20 pull-ups or whatever you do. If you're not used to doing pull-ups, you do none or 1. And people got in the squad by doing none or 1 pull-up, which makes a nonsense of the selection exercise, if you know what I mean. Because if you can get in by doing none, what's the point of doing it? The other thing about pull-ups, much as I love them, is if I'm going to ask you to do pull-ups, or we're going to decide pull-ups, then we've got to set in train a sensible level. So you've got precursor exercises, strangely enough, starting with bent over row, maybe doing body weight rows, reverse rows, building up to it, and then doing pull-ups. Yeah. So I've got to give you which I'm happy to do, a series of exercises to maximize. So when you do the test, it actually means something, rather than just doing 1 or 2 and then off. Yeah. So that's an example of a great exercise which is less accessible. So what I'm looking for your ideas about stuff that can be done with maybe a kettlebell, a couple of hex weights, or a couple of hand weights, maybe not body weight, or that sort of thing, or a weight bar. Yeah.
Quick question about the number of exercises, Tim.
Yeah.
Are you asking us to think of 6 just for variety, or just choices for you if you're putting everything in a hat and going?
Well, what I want to do, I've got my own 6 anyway.
Sorry, what I mean is you are proposing for whatever the selected exercises are, for there to be 6 of them.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
I'm suggesting, if you've only got 1, send me 1. If you've got 12, send me 12, and that's fine. And you don't have to send me the rationale, because I can work out why it's a good exercise or not. But I'm just interested in your thinking behind it. And what I'll do is I'll basically, those who, from the 4 locations, those who want to submit stuff, I'll come up with the top 10, and those who want to vote for it. So I'm looking for a return within a week, and then we'll decide. So I still publish it by the end of February. Yeah, but all I'm interested in, since I've got the opportunity to ask you, then I'll ask you. And the chances are, I'm pretty sure Nikki, Candy, Ian, Tony, anybody, if we sat down together, we'd probably come up with a very similar 6 anyway, if you know what I mean. Yeah, you're probably not going to come up with ballet dancing or pogo stick. You might do.
There goes 2 of mine.
You might have come up with something that I've missed, and there's lots of things that I miss. So I'm really interested. Well, they've got the chance to ask you, or let's ask you and see what you say. Yeah, that's all. Right, that's that. Because I'm thinking in terms of maybe a few months' time in terms of time trials, and it's very likely when it comes to time trials, then you can be doing 1,000 for the paddling and the ergo, 1,000 meters, 500 meters, and an all-out 100 meters, or maybe all-out minute. So you're testing the 3 main energy systems. Yeah. So I'm now going to configure the returns towards that. So this week it's on the teams anyway. It's 6-minute effort, 3-minute effort, 3-minute effort, 6-minute effort. So 6-3-3-6. So it's 6-3-3-6 in a boat, 6-3-3-6 on a pogo stick, 6-3-3-6 on the gym exercises, and you'll see the exercises, but it's just getting into that frame of mind. The only difference is with the gym exercises, it's HIIT style. So it's 85, 75, 85, 75. You see what I mean?
Tony, can you pirouette for 6 minutes?
If you can,
Yeah.
if you can, or Scott says, actually, I want to, no, I don't know, whatever. But like I say, I'm not suggesting I've got the answers to everything. But if you've got a great exercise that you know about, that you do, and it's easy and accessible, example is, and actually what made me think about it was the ICF and also Nikki. Because Nikki mentioned this man maker exercise, person maker, whatever you want to call
I'm
it.
still sorry, everyone.
And it really is, if you look at it, if you look at the standard exercise, it really does hit a number of marks with a minimum amount of equipment. And it's a really good anaerobic, aerobic, pulling, bit of pushing. So yeah, that sort of thing is really good, good value. Yeah.
I really like it. It doesn't make me dizzy.
Well, that's always good as well.
I do like it, sir. It doesn't hurt my knees and my back.
Well, I love burpees as well, but if I'm the only person who loves burpees, then burpees are out. As simple as that. Yeah, and that's democracy for you. Right. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about starts. We were going to talk about this last week. Who wants to tell me, on this open house here, what's the purpose of a start? I'm talking about a race start here, as opposed to. So what's the point of it? What's it all about?
Get the boat up and moving.
Right, so we're getting the boat from dead stop up to some sort of speed. So we'll talk about what happens in a minute. But we're going from 0 on the race line, ready to go, up to what? Where do we at that transition point? What sort of speed is that?
Maximum, hopefully.
Is that maximum or optimum or whatever? So you're gonna basically get that acceleration gradient as fast, as steep as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, whether it's maximum or optimum, let's just go into that a little bit. If I said 100%, and we've mentioned this before, true 100%, how much real energy have you got? If you put in absolutely a real 100%, everything you've got, how long will you last? So we're talking about top end creatine phosphate energy system, if you're into that sort of stuff. How long will you last?
10 seconds.
Yeah, not long. Yeah.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you'll last 10 seconds. This is true fright or flight. And after which, if you train in that energy level, the way you do it is a ratio of about 5, well, at least 5 to 1, maybe more, which means if you're going to do a 10-second effort, then you're probably going to have at least 50 seconds or more rest. And that's why, if you go to the gym, you might see a load of blokes and ladies walking around. They just do a bit of bench press and they spend 10 minutes walking around. You think, what the hell are they doing? They're just lazy. Listen to a podcast or something. If they're training, if they're properly training in that sort of energy system, it's going to be a maximal effort and then a long rest. And that's really hypertrophy, absolute strength, bodybuilding sort of stuff. Not bodybuilding, yeah, bodybuilding, proper weight training, heavyweight weight training. So do we want to be going for maximal? If maximal is 100%, do we want to be going for maximal?
No.
Because it's going to be fly and die, isn't it? If we're doing a 10-second race, great. But most of our races are going to be hopefully 50 seconds, 45 seconds, 50 seconds for 200, hopefully under 2 minutes for 500, etc., 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes, whatever. Yeah. So we're going to be going round about 90%, but there's got to be the maximum we can achieve and recover during the transition and carry on. So it's some sort of optimal level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So 85, 90%, because if we fly and die, then that's the race is done, isn't it? Okay. So how do we get there? Bearing in mind, any idea how much an open dragon boat weighs? So the open crew. So how much does an open crew weigh with a boat? How much does a mixed crew weigh? How much does a ladies crew weigh? Any ideas?
A lot.
A lot. Yes, a lot. So the boat is 240 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
So on average, and this is real average, and it depends. The average competition ladies crew probably something like 1600, 1650. yeah, kilos. Average open crew, it depends, something like 1900, 2000 kilos, 2 tons, and a mixed team, obviously somewhere in between. Yeah. So these are the figures we're talking about. So your average car, how much does that weigh these days?
Half.
Half a ton?
No, half of that.
Half of that. Okay, so about a ton. So I've got a Land Rover sitting outside, but imagine my Land Rover fully loaded. It's not moving. I've got to jump start it, right? You know, I've got to put a huge amount of effort in to get that going. And I'm not gonna, if I want to drive it, for example, I'm not going to jump in it and drive it at 5th gear, am I? Well, it'll probably work, but it'll complain a lot. So I've got to, if I'm going to move that sort of weight, and that's going to be what, 1500, 1700 kilos, I don't know, something like that. So I've got to go through the gears. Yeah. So how do we, if we use that terminology, going through the gears or phases, what happens in those various phases? So what do we normally do? How do you do it? Whether you do the Amethyst 310s, it's not quite 310s, or you do 666, or you do 38s, or Blackjack 37s, 357, whatever. What are you actually doing during the phases of the start? You're going through the gears, but what's happening? Any ideas? Scott, let me nominate like University Challenge. Nominate Scott. What happens?
I think at the start, isn't it? You're just trying to lift the boat out of the water and then maintain that lift throughout the transitions.
Okay. So the first few strokes. Yeah, I mean, it depends on which team you're in. This could be 6 strokes, it could be 3 strokes, but a number of strokes. What to break that inertia? What are we aiming to do in those first few strokes? Whatever number it is, it won't be 10. It'll be somewhere between 3, 4, 5, that sort of thing. What's going on there? G. So you can't go to sleep here.
You want to create acceleration, so you want to build the speed.
Right, are you accelerating on the first 3 or 4 or 5 strokes? So the first gear piece, yeah? I mean, Kingston Royals, how much is that first piece? How many strokes?
Well, we break it into 5s, but it's still really the first 3 that you're talking about.
Okay, so Rage, what do Rage do? Same sort of thing?
I can't remember having paddled for so long. What did we do? 5. I honestly can't.
Well, Amethyst, I know it's 310s, but actually it's 3, 7, 10, 10, isn't it? When you think about it, and you count for the 10, but the first 3 or 4 are really getting the boat moving. Yeah. Okay. So that first gear piece, are we going? What sort of? Yeah, we talked about different strengths last week. Is it static strength? Is it strength endurance? Is it explosive strength? What is it? What do we think it is?
Explosive.
Explosive.
Explosive, right? Okay. If you've got some background, could you just stick yourself on mute, just so we haven't got any background coming in. But if not, if there's nothing in the background, no worries. Obviously, unmute whenever you need to. So explosive strength, but that explosive strength, is that just the first 3, or is it all the way through the start? I mean, how are we? I'm just interested in your perception about what you're actually doing. Is it just the first 3 explosive, or is all of the start explosive?
Oh, I was thinking maybe mainly the first 3, because you're trying to get the boat moving from a dead stop.
Right.
But the explosiveness would then transition into something else.
Okay. Okay. I'd say all of the start actually is explosive strength as such, and the transition, if you like, is the transition into more strength endurance. But okay, there's different theories on that. But how much effort are you putting into the first? Call it the first 3 strokes, the first gear piece. How much effort are you putting into that?
As much as you can.
Okay, that's one idea. I'm not saying that's wrong.
No.
I'll just suggest something else to you in a minute.
I was thinking the first 3 strokes, it's not really as many as 10 seconds, I don't think. Not that I've timed it. So maybe we can do 100%. Is that what we normally do? And then drop it.
Kat, what do you think?
I think I always try and give like more than I should, and well, 100% for as long as possible in any race start is what I definitely always try to do, whether it's right or not. Because you want to, well, I feel like if you're ahead off the start, you stand more chance of staying ahead for the rest of the race. But I'm used to different races. Joe's just reminded me that Dragon Boating's only very short ones, and I'm used to longer races.
Okay. Would it be the most intelligent thing to do, bearing in mind that first 3 strokes, I'm not saying you wouldn't paddle them soft, yeah, but I'm talking about best use of energy and effort and strength. All you're really doing in those first few strokes is breaking the inertia. And the same way, if I go outside and you're pushing a van or a Land Rover or a car or whatever, it's easy to push something that's already moving, isn't it? We all know that inertia is broken. And then, so a few years ago, I got conscious of actually overdoing the first 3 or 4 strokes and just wasting energy. Now, you're still going to be fairly high level. And the reason I thought about this is I was coaching a bloke who was in the juniors and he was autistic. And it's relevant, and it's really relevant. It was funny, actually, because, for example, we were on Bray Lake and we're paddling towards the setting sun. And I said to him, he says, what direction are we paddling? We said, we're paddling towards the sun. And he said, we're doing a 500-meter piece. And he says, well, the sun's moving. Right, very true. I said, well, by the time we get there, it probably won't have moved that much. It won't start there. We won't be paddling that long. It won't end up over there. It will be moving. Yes, it is. We're moving at 1,000 miles an hour, but from where we are now, relative to the sun, it doesn't really matter. But the autism was really relevant because he really thought about everything I was saying to him, which is really unusual when you think about it. But he was really thinking about it, and he actually said, so I'm in a boat. I'm in a single boat, a Jaguar or whatever, 01, and I want to get this boat up to speed as fast as possible. But at the first 3 strokes, all I'm doing is getting the boat going. So what I do is I do strong strokes for the first 3, and when the boat's moving, then I accelerate it. And my acceleration is much more efficient, much more effective once the boat is moving. And I tried it a good few times, and he's right.
Right.
Now, you've got to be quite a disciplined team and know what you're doing and really paddling on purpose. But when we're thinking about it, how important is the start? In terms of a race, it's at the start. Okay, so you could say, well, I could have a really crappy start and then spend the rest of the 500 meters catching up. But how important is the start?
Well, that's pretty important. You've got to get it moving.
If you don't start, you won't finish. So that's true.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to get ahead, you've got to get started, or the other way around. Yeah. But
You may as well do it as efficiently as possible.
right. But would you say? I mean, let me give you some options then. No, 4 options. So it's not important at all. Second option doesn't matter. We can always catch up later on. 3, it's sort of important. It's nice if we can get our nose ahead. 4 is absolutely vital that we get our nose ahead because it's easier to race a race if you're ahead than if you're playing catch up. So
Option 4.
bearing in mind I gave it slightly different emphasis. Who thinks it's absolutely vital to get a clean, powerful, effective, efficient start?
Yes.
Yeah. Don't just say it because I said so. Who thinks it's not important? It don't matter, and we'll catch up later on. We've got 500 meters after all. No one. Good. Absolutely vital. Absolutely, and that's why getting the right amount of effort that's going into it, but not too much. It's a Goldilocks thing. Not too much, not too little, just right. And that only comes about by trial and effort and practice. So as soon as you're out on the water, I mean, I go out and I'll do the homework. Well, I keep saying homework, the returns tomorrow. Every time it's a race start, every time. You cannot overdo training for starts. It is so important because you all know from the racing you've done, whether you've been racing years or not many years, if there's boats, 3 boats in a line, if you're ahead, everyone else knows you're ahead. They're all catching you up. And I wouldn't say you relax into it, but it's just easier cutting through clean water than it is psychologically knowing you're behind and having some rough water or the V wash off a boat to deal with as well. And if
I
you
think
ramp that up,
psychologically, sorry, psychologically, I think knowing that you have a start process, a middle and an end, it's just, as you were saying about intelligent paddling and breaking things down into components, it does that. So rather than just go, go, go.
absolutely. And this is why I'll labour the point a little bit. I mean, Dave calls it intelligent paddling. I call it proactive paddling. It's the same thing, but it's knowing where you are. And as we said last time, 500 meters, 130 strokes, maybe, you know, every stroke counts. And even if you're paddling at 60 strokes a minute or whatever, then 2 in the water, 1 in the air in terms of time, then you've got 130 times 0.6 of a second. That's the power phase. And it's not a lot of time. So you need to know and need to be using each of those strokes wisely. So I talk about paddling red line and not the red mist. So people say, well, just tell me what to do. I'll just do it. I'll just get in a boat and bash away. Well, fine. And you may be a very powerful person, but you could actually be taking as much power off the back of the stroke as you're putting on at the front of the stroke. And I'm sure every team has got somebody who's quite a fit person, but just doesn't listen. They just do their own thing, and then 3 strokes behind them, or 3 seats behind them, there's some massive ball of water because they're just absolutely ripping out the back. And actually, no, I wasn't going to be inappropriate. I was going to mention a paddler that I used to know who was in my crew, and he would not listen, which is fine. He wouldn't listen to any sort of reason at all, and he was very inefficient and ripped out the back. And actually, I'm glad he went to another team, because actually, even though he was very fit bloke, very keen, very committed, probably do 20 pull-ups and that sort of stuff, but wasn't too interested in listening a different way, a more efficient way of paddling. So what power he brought to the boat, he also took away from it. Yeah.
Tim, does it matter depending on the makeup of the boat though? So if you've got people that are aerobically very fit, but potentially might not be that like fast twitch kind of get that start going, would you change your start for that? So if you knew somebody could like build that pace up slowly, but not necessarily that explosive power at the beginning?
Well, I'd like the option. Well, I mean, depending what sort of start you're using in a 2K, you know, it's not a lot of time to catch that up. And obviously in the 2K, there's lots of variables as well. But if you're talking about something that's an explosive start, then you probably end up, if you had that sort of paddler, if you had sufficient paddlers, you probably opt to put them in your longer distances. I mean, 1K, 2K, and leave your shorter distances. I mean, I wouldn't like to go into a competition, any serious competition, knowing that I had an inefficient start and knew I was catching up, even if I had, you know, massively strong people. But you see what I mean? But I mean, it depends on who you've got in your crew. I mean, ideally, you spend that much time on various what we call focus pieces and different stuff, just making sure you understand every aspect of the start and what's going on. So it's not just get in it and paddle 30 strokes and then 3, 2, 1 reach, and then paddle slightly differently. Each one of those, whether it's a 30-stroke start, a 15-stroke start, and by the way, we'll be trialing it's called a magnum start, 3, 5, 7. So your first gear is 3, your next gear is 5, your next gear is 7, and you're into transition. Because certainly with small boats, ideally you want to be getting into your optimum as soon as possible. Yeah. I've done stuff with some crews where it's an 18-stroke start, so it's 3 6s, for example, and then 3, 2, 1 into a reach around about 20. But on one occasion, we called the first 6, called the second 6, and I actually forgot that I was thinking about. But in the heat of the moment, I forgot to call the transition piece, because you don't go 18 strokes or whatever and then suddenly transition, do you? You've got to give people the process time to get into it, and that's the purpose of the 3, 2, 1. So you're when you're working hard, you need a bit of process time to then deliver it on the G of the go. And I forgot to call the transition, and you know what, they kept accelerating. So what I do now is you trial various things, and I have the sort of situation now where if you're doing 6s or 5s or whatever you're doing, it's components of 5, and they keep going until you get your optimum speed. So I will know, hopefully, that say our optimum speed is in flat calm conditions is 17 kph. So we're going to keep accelerating until we hit 17 kph, because anyone in the house who's not a human being, no, everyone a human being, you know that you'll be working for in a certain way for 30 strokes. All human beings are like this. So human beings, unless you're really exceptional, will probably try and be a bit lazy. So I always say to crews at some time, you lot are the laziest bunch I've ever come across, because you're human beings. And it really is important. This is the difference between high level competitive sport and competitive sport. And I'll cite John O'Grady. So most of you, if not all of you, have heard of John O'Grady or know John O'Grady. Probably the best dragon boat paddler the UK so far has ever produced. Narrowly avoided getting into the 2016 Olympics in K2. I think there were 4 pairs and he was the 3rd pair. Very high level paddler. I remember saying to him once, you know, in terms of, I think he still may hold the record, even on brackish water, for the 01 500, 2:12 or something crazy. Maybe little Paul has broken that, but it's a really fast time for 500 meters. I remember saying to him, you know, so what is it that sets you apart? What do you think is different? He said, well, basically, I think I'm not really, well, he was a gifted. He was saying, I'm not a gifted paddler. I'm just prepared to put myself through more pain. But it's not just pain, is it? It's pain with a purpose. There's got to be a reason for it. So it's not just no pain, no gain. You've got to have a reason and a vision, if you like, and an aiming point. But that's that sort of thing. So you've got to be putting yourself in a bit of discomfort, to say the least. Anyway, arcing back, starts. So that first 3 strokes, we'll have to, you know, measure, evaluate, assess, and test everything. How much effort do we need to be putting into those first 3 strokes if the name of the game is essentially to break the inertia, so when the boat is moving, then we come in with acceleration? Yeah. Now, like I say, once you've done a number of starts, a good number of starts, then you can start tinkering at that sort of level. But each of those strokes does count. Yeah. So I'll just leave that for a minute. So we've got that first gear piece, break the inertia, where we're putting in 85, 90, 100, whatever. We can discuss and decide later on. But then what do you do? So there's your first 3 strokes. Then say you're doing an 18 or 20 stroke start or 24. What's happening in the rest of it?
Acceleration.
So acceleration. So in a number of stages. So let me rewind you. I forgot to mention this. Just rewind you for this first 3 again. Sorry, I forgot one more thing. What sort of depth do you think the paddle needs to be? And what sort of length of stroke?
First 3 as deep as you can. Well, all of it, you've got a buried blade. And I'd say the first 3 were deeper. And then every time you move up, whatever your stages are, you probably should be lengthening out.
Okay. Does anyone think, and they're one of the Canadian crews I've done some stuff with, they paddle, the first 3 strokes, they paddle with half a blade in the water. Let me try and look serious for a minute. Does anybody think we should be paddling with half a blade in the water? No, I mean, no. So so for whatever we're doing, whatever phase of the start, we're paddling blade fully buried. Yeah. Okay. So bearing in mind part of the catch, we talked about the catch, and part of the reason for the catch is to create some lift. Yeah. Now that really comes into play when the boat is actually moving. Do we, on the first stroke, do we actually want to be lifting in an open crew a 2-ton boat? Or are we expending a bit too much effort trying to create lift on that first stroke? Once it's moving, you see what I mean? We've got the rhythm going, then we can generate what lift there is to be had. We can do that. But the first few strokes, maybe not. So does the first few strokes need to be a little bit shorter? Who thinks yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. How much shorter?
50%.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tony, any thoughts? You're looking studious there.
Well, what I was thinking is it's depending on what you've trained for and what crew you're with as to what that. It's very hard to judge that as a percentage because it's fairly arbitrary at the moment. We just know it's a shorter stroke, but it's with your team.
Good point. So if we talk about the phases of the stroke, so there's a paddle, boat's going in that direction. So we've got the catch point, whether that's 40 degrees, 45 degrees, 42 and a half, whatever, 60 maybe. Then you've got the power point, we talked about that, that's 90 degrees. So I'm pushing in that direction, boat's going in that direction. That's the most efficient part of the stroke. And then because it's a rotational stroke, then it will track negative at the end, not too much, so we're pushing down, but towards the back of the stroke, we'll try and retain that neutrality as long as possible, and then it'll go negative at the end and we'll come out. Yep. So not in terms of percentage, and I agree with Tony, because if you say, well, it's 10%, it's 20%, what is it? I mean, because that's different, isn't it? But if it's not going to be full catch, full forward, as in limit of strength and dexterity, as far forward you can lean without getting weak. And it's probably not going to be there, because I try to get in there, I'm probably going to hit there. So it's probably going to be just forward, first few strokes, just forward of that power point, yeah? So we can get it in there and get some oomph behind it and still generate some acceleration, yeah? Agree with that, or a bit longer, or something like that, yeah? So just in front of the power point, just to get the boat moving. And then when the boat is moving and we can actually get some acceleration out of it, then you go to full length, yeah? Now this will depend on team tactics. The best I've come across so far, and this is what the only thing I've come across so far, is the first three, your first gear piece, essentially you're taking 10-15% off the front, 10-50% off the back. So it's actually the length, pretty much the length of an outrigger stroke, actually, that sort of thing. The first three strokes, and then after that, you're full length, full depth, and then you're into what Nikki mentioned there regarding your acceleration piece. Yeah. Like I say, this is for measure, evaluate, assess, test, but that's the best I've come across so far. But that, once again, to Ian's point exactly, that takes into account how strong people are, the stroke rate, because if there's a strong people, they're fit, they're dexterous, and you keep up a higher stroke rate, then you could have a shorter stroke. But that's to come. Okay. So your acceleration piece. When you accelerate, so between your third stroke, say it's argument's sake, you're doing a 20-stroke start. So your first three, break the inertia, get it going, that's first gear. Then you're into full depth, full length for 17 strokes. Do you just ramp it up, or do you take it up in stages? Do you just basically, after the third stroke, pedal to the metal, gun it until you get to whatever you think your transition is, then 3, 2, 1.
Do you transition it?
Yeah, so you'll transition route. So if you're doing a 20-stroke stroke, you're probably, your last three will be 3, 2, 1, and then you're basically fourth to fifth gear, whatever you're going to be. So you're gearing up, yes, to go. So if you say, for example, you get to 17 kph, you've got 17 kph in second gear, and after transition, you're doing 17 kph in fourth gear. So you're achieving the same speed, but you're burning less energy. Yeah, but that 17 strokes or whatever it's going to be, how do you? So yes, you accelerate, but how do you accelerate? I know you get faster. Okay, but do you do it just get up to speed as fast as possible, or do you take it up in stages?
Well, it has to be measured, or it'll just get messy.
Right. So what would you think? Stages or?
I'd say stages.
Okay. All right. Fine. So, oh yes, yeah. Anyone disagree with that? It's what you all do anyway. Well, you may count it, but you may not actually do.
No.
Has it been explained what you're supposed to be doing? So, for example, with the Amethyst 10-10-10 or 3-7-10-10, what's actually taking place. So we know what's going on in the first 3. Your second gear piece, the next 7, before you do your first 9 up into the second 10, if you know what I mean. And in fact, let me just wind back a bit. When you say 9 up, why do you say that? I mean, lots of people do that now, but what's the point of the 9 up? Why don't you say 10 or go? What's the point of saying 9 up?
It's to prepare you for the next transition, isn't it?
Okay.
I thought it was more to do with making sure you get back into your stroke, because you can get a bit red mist, as you said before. So it makes you sit up a bit more, makes you think about your stroke a bit more.
I mean, the word up, that's your executive word of command. So you're delivering on the up. But just jumping into military parlance a minute, if you're giving people a set of orders, so you are a squad of people from a service. If I was giving you an order, it would be crew. So I address a group or part of the crew. Steady forward paddling. So I'll tell you what I want you to do. Attention. That's the cautionary word of command. Go. So I grab hold of a group of you, tell you what I want you to do, tell you when I want you to do it. So stand by and then go. So the way your mind processes, if I just said, okay, crew, go, you'd be all over the place. So you need that process time. And the process word, the cautionary word, if you're in military speak, is attention, or it's the 9. So the reason you hear 9 up is because you need to deliver that change on the 10th stroke. So the 9 is just warning you that the up 10 comes later, comes after. Do you know what I mean?
I can see the theory behind that. I'm not sure that actually happens.
No, well that's the point. That's the point. We all do it, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain, unless things have changed drastically, we all do it, and we all sort of say different things. But I don't actually think a lot of teams actually, frankly, know what they're supposed to be doing, and therefore probably don't do it. That's absolutely critically important, because if you think about it, you're working hard. Scott, yes.
No, I'm just trying to remember. Obviously, it's been a while now since we've been on the water, but for me, it was more a point in time. It was like a focus. So
Yes, yeah.
9 focus, 9 focus, 9
Yeah.
focus. It sort of brought me back from like going too far ahead in the stroke, being too far behind. It was a line in time almost for me.
I mean, whatever, I've got to say, and I got this from Amethyst, but whatever start I'm doing, whether I'm doing the Magnum start, there's ones I use 3-5-7. It's it's 1 2 3, 1 2 3 4 up, 1 2 3 4 5 6 up. Yeah, it's the same thing. The up is a really good word, because apart from going up on the rate, going up on the speed, it reminds you to keep your head up, everything up. Head up, arm up, everything up. Yeah. So it's a good word, but you need the warning beforehand, because unless you're counting strokes, and some people do, some people don't. If you're working hard, we want you as the paddlers, you as the crew, to be focusing on your workspace, and your workspace starts at the catch, finishes at the exit point, and that's it. Yeah. All the blending stuff. So if I'm sitting next to Scott and whatever, we sort out whether you're high, I'm low, and that sort of thing. We sort all that stuff out in training or in performance training. So when you come to perform, all you're worrying about is what you need to worry about. That's your workspace, and that's it. Everything else, all the blending around you, has been measured, evaluated, assessed, and tested. And that's the difference between training, performance training, or training for performance, and performance itself. So if you were ballet dancers, and I'm sure you all are, you're the equivalent of Billy Elliot going on stage in Swan Lake at the end of the film. You're not going to be thinking about, where do I need to stand? Where's the spotlight? You know all that. You've practiced all that. And that's why we do pre-trials in time trials. So all the stuff all the knowns are known. So come the day of the race, the unknowns you've got is like happened to us a few years ago, where on a 2K in Kunming, Iran decided to capsize in front of us on a turn. But we had the tactics, quick left, quick right, go. Race start, there you go. You see what I mean? So all you're doing And that's what we're talking about there in terms of the knowns and the unknowns. But I've lost my thread there a little bit. So on that, so that process word, so on the up, and it's really important. I'm sure people don't think about this too much. So you're accelerating up in stages. And most people, the way we work is you think in terms of groups of 4, groups of 6. You don't think in terms of group of 12 and a half, do you? So it's a nice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe even 10 or whatever it's going to be. There's not too much. So it's a packaged lump of something. So on the 20-stroke start or the 30-stroke start, for example, first gear for 3, first acceleration piece, but we're not going to accelerate wildly. It's going to be a controlled acceleration. So it's going to be 3, 7, 10, 10, transition. So you as a racer know what you're doing on every part of that start and where you are. So it's on the 18th stroke, you're delivering this intensity. And let's say you can only do that, you can only approach that if you practice it again, 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 and again, and you know you've measured that in your 30-stroke start or your 15-stroke start or whatever it's going to be, you're optimized and you can make 60 meters, 70 meters, whatever it is, because you practice it that often, and you're not going to change your tactics on the day of the race because you've done it that often. That's the start. We've practiced it, we've done it, we've optimized it. This is the best we've got.
Does that keep the team together as well? Because then everybody has that time to adjust and then get to the next stage rather than doing it straight off.
Something we started doing at the World Cup in Wuhan, 2016, I think. A lot of teams do this now, actually, which is great. We do a focus piece, and your teams might do something very similar. And the focus piece is basically the same as you do when you train starts. You go out and do the first 3, then the first 3, then the first 3. And when you're happy, first section, second section. So the first 10. You probably do variations of that in your own teams in terms of breaking it down. So, if you do the first 3 and the third one was a bit lazy, no, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, and then we move on. And you move on when you're happy. And it's a really good way to focus a team. Because you think about it, a few butterflies, you're at a World Cup, you're at a World Championships, European Championships, and you're thinking about all sorts of crap. And you just need to focus the team in. And we started doing that because one of the early races, people were getting focused 3 or 4 strokes into the race. Now that's okay at a BDA league event. It's not okay at a World Cup. Yeah. So you see what I mean? So we just needed to take the focus piece back behind the start line. So we do the warm-up, we do the land warm-up, we do a bit of a water warm-up, and then we just spend a couple of seconds really just doing a bit of a focus. It's illegal actually on the way to starts. You've got to keep moving, but you can still focus people in so they know and remind them what to do. And this is another thing I got from Dave, and it's really great that it doesn't matter how much time you spend practicing, you forget. It's a 30-stroke start. How many times have you done a 30-stroke start? You forget what you're supposed to be doing. And you just need a calm head and a calm voice on the back of the boat, the front of the boat saying, right, stop. We've done this 1,000 times. It's a race start. Yes, we're in China, and we've got China on one side and we've got Taipei on the other rather than St. Neots and Kingston Royals or whoever's going to be. It's a big league, right? This is the main event. Sometimes you have to remind people about that, and they sort of fall back into BDA mode. Nothing wrong with that, but they're so familiar with racing, they actually forget they're at the World Championships, and it is a big deal. And the only way you can do that is by training, adjusting, testing, measuring, etc., etc. Yeah. So,
Tim, do you have any video recommendations for a start that you want to achieve? I know it's not all set in stone, but just to get an idea of something that you would recommend.
In terms of sequences,
race starts. Yeah.
Well, at this point in time, what I'm planning to do, the first time we get on the water, one of the first things, well, probably the first session, we'll be going through the focus piece and starts. And what I normally do is I start with a 15-stroke start,
3-5.
start with a 21-stroke start, 3-7s. I start with a 30-stroke start, and then test and adjust those. Because ideally, you want to be up to speed as fast as possible. But the point is, rather than saying I recommend it, it'd be wrong for me to do that, because we will test and evaluate a set number of starts. Yeah. And the one you go with is the one that's optimized for that particular boat.
Okay.
But you always have in the back pocket that it's, you know, it might be a 20-stroke start or 18, whatever it's going to be, but what you're actually aiming to achieve on that start is not 18 strokes, it's an optimum speed. So if, as we all every now and again feeling a bit lazy one day in a start and we're not quite at that speed, we're going to carry on accelerating. So it's a bit of a contract that your coaches have and your helms have with you. Your job, our job, the crew's job is to achieve that optimum. Call it 17 kph. It might be 18, it might be 15. Whatever it is, the job of the start is to get to that point as fast as possible. So it might be, just to confuse things a bit, if we're doing a 21-stroke start, 3-7s, and you're at 17 kph in 15 strokes, then we'll call the transition early. Now, the chances are we'd have practiced it that often that we know it's going to be this, but we want to avoid that option where, yeah, it's a 15-stroke start, it's not whatever it's going to be, but I'm just doing the start. The point of the start is to get to that optimum speed as fast as possible. Yeah. Do you see the difference I'm saying there? Because you all know in your race boats, say you've been doing, say, I don't know, a 30-stroke start, and you know sometimes you're on the money and sometimes you're not on the money. But the point of the start is to get on the money every time, first time, every time. Yeah. So that's so I hesitate to say do this. We have got to get together in a boat and say, right, let's try a shorter start, let's try a longer start. Because the other thing about a 30-stroke start is, like I say, if you're up to speed, and we've done this a few times in the past with amateurs, we've been up to speed at 20, and we've carried on doing the higher rate for another 10, when in fact we're up to speed. And in the days when amateurs were dominant, and they may still be, but when they were, and we were like winning 1,000 meters by 10 lengths, I mean, crazy stuff, then it doesn't really matter, if you know what I mean. Of course, now it's more competitive, it does matter. And I'm sure all the coaches of various teams should be thinking, well, it's not just a case of me doing 30 strokes anymore, it's about getting the best bang for the buck out of each of those 30 and then going from there. But if I'm up to speed in time, then why am I labouring it? Why am I just gunning at the engine when I'm just not need to go into transition? How many coaches do you know talk like that? Not many. Not many, because when you think about it, the average Dragon Boat team will get together once or twice a week, and we won't have the time to do that. So that's where we're trying to go with the national squad, just to take it up to the next level. So it becomes optimum performance rather than just performance. Yeah. Doesn't really answer your question, but hopefully it gives you an idea of where I want to go with this, if we possibly can. Yeah, you'll probably end up doing it that often, and you'll know the start is this length. But the contract is, yes, it's this length, but our job as paddlers, your job as paddlers, is to hit that optimum point. And if you don't, then we're going to keep accelerating until you do. And if it takes half the race to do it, but then that's a bit of an incentive to work a bit harder, isn't it? And I like that. I like that sort of climate. And I'm sure you do as well. Okay. Any thoughts on that? We've got lots to talk about on starts. That's probably nearly an hour already. So give me some thoughts.
I'm just thinking how, I assume if you're going to do a blended squad, you know, with it from around the world, I assume at some point you'll decide on what's the best start for what the team might be, because we might be better at a, as you said, 3-5-7. Hong Kong might be better at a 10-10-10. How do you decide?
Well, that's going to be quite a difficult.
Yeah.
So from a coaching perspective, that's the sort of problems I want. So myself, Lee in Hong Kong, Nikki in Dubai, and Chris in Mauritius. There's only one paddler in Mauritius, but so he's a one-man band, so to speak. To decide how that's going to work. I mean, what Hong Kong is doing, they're going to be trialing a very, very slightly different, more outrigger-esque stroke. frankly, I already know the results to what he's going to be doing. He's just talking about a slightly flatter stroke in terms of arm position on the start piece, and then opening out. But I mean, that's just that. So we're looking at different things already, but we'll trial something in one location, measure it. We're not going to get everyone to trial everything because there's lots of things to think about. Of course, this year of all years, everything is concertinaed. So if I say to people, well, we want 20 variations of the stroke. I mean, arcing back to my police days, you know, those rigid handcuffs. This we go off piste a bit. I'm sure you haven't had experience of them in terms of being handcuffed. I'm sure you've seen them on the bill or something or the equivalent. When those first came out, the Home Office approved 92 different methods of handcuffing people. And most of us coppers on the street said, you must be crazy. We're never going to remember 92. Give us 5 or 6. 5 or 6 you can learn, you can understand, you can process, you can evaluate. 92 different ways of handcuffing people is never going to work. So what we'll come up with is a small range of things, and we might start saying, well, let's just work on the starts in the UK. Let's work on some other aspect in Dubai and then work out what's going to work, because frankly, it's probably going to work across the board for all of us. And then we'll blend that in. But if it becomes too difficult, then sometimes you have to sort of cut and run with what you've got. But I want to have sufficient time to evaluate stuff sensibly, intelligently, but not overload you with loads of different things. You'll just say, I can't do it, and you won't be able to do it in the time you've got. Yeah. So, but that's going to be a difficult one about how we're going to blending you bunched together and others in a boat in the UK will be great. No problem. That will go on in leaps and bounds. Blending you with Dubai, even though you're paddling the same stroke, will take a bit of time. We managed it with the minimal stuff in 2017, so we will manage it. We will manage it. But and same in Hong Kong. If we have enough to have a crew out of the UK, that would be desirable, because when you think about it, then you can optimize your working together. But it's too early to make that judgment. Yeah.
Tim,
yes.
On that theme, let's just, for argument's sake, say you have, let's just say a mixed crew, and you've got composite. So you've got 8 from Dubai, you've got 8 from Hong Kong, and 4 or 6 from here, with a couple of reserves or whatever. How much time would you hope for that crew to all sit in a boat and practice together before the event?
Right. Depends. Well, blimey. That's I mean, it's a valid question. It's a great question. It's a slightly impossible one to answer at the moment, because I don't know how.
Well, yeah. So I mean, in terms of what would you hope for? I mean,
right,
the reality is obviously not in control,
if it's achievable, bearing in mind the world is in Hong Kong, I would try to get as many people out to Hong Kong a little bit earlier, and obviously I appreciate, but there's other stuff you can do as well. So you probably know I go on about blending a lot. So it's not just a case of saying, well, Scott is nicely blended with Ian, for example. We're sort of going down that line last year. But so you have the blended seat pairs, and then you have plugs in the boat. And what I mean by that is a group of 4 or 6 paddlers. So what you tend to find, I've done this in the past, where you'll get you might have a mixed crew, and it might have 3 seats from Dubai with 4 seats from the UK and whatever's left from Hong Kong. So you end up, and when I work with 4 stroke seats, so 1, 2, 3, and 7 are stroke seats. Yeah, and you think, why is a stroke seat in number 7? But then all you've got to do is have a look at a number of pictures, nice and long at the front, slightly small at the back. So I've found putting a stroke paddler pair in at seat 7 is like an enforcer reinforcer, and that also gives me the options, or us the options, to change the trim of the boat just by moving 3 into 1, 1 into 2. So you train 4 groups as a stroke pair, stroke seat or stroke group. But if it happens, if we want to get as much time together as possible, but we'll also aim to train you as plugs, a 6-person plug, a 2-person plug, so you've got a seat pair and you can put composites together as well. It's not ideal, but it's far better than having, say, 3 plugs from 3 different locations or 2 different locations, and then blending those 2 halves rather than blending 20 different people. I say it's not the complete answer, but it works quite well in 2017, and we're much further on than we were there. That's the first time we did it at all, and we got into every major final, and in fact the ladies even won a medal. So you know, at world level, it is quite a it's got some utility. But if it's possible to get people out to Hong Kong, if we're going for Worlds in Hong Kong earlier, the advantage is, of course, we've got cheaper accommodation because we'll get people to put people up with, and we're not, you know, we can, because it's that we have a home team advantage because part of our team is based in Hong Kong. So that's what I try to do there.
Okay, so ideally, you would probably like to have people out there for around 2 weeks then.
Ideally, yeah, if that's possible. But like I say, that depends on people's availability and stuff, and
well, a million and one things at the moment, isn't it? But
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, that would be the ideal, but you've got, I mean, realistically, you probably end up, if the passes anything to go by, you probably end up with maybe 70% of the crew who are able to do that, and a few other people come slightly later in the week and whatever, yeah. We've also got the options, because I've got a training-based location in Cyprus, then we can do that as well. You may not get the whole crew out, but you know, I've got dragon boats, I've got small boats, big boats, O1s, OC1, OC2, OC6 sitting at Paphos. It's illegal for me to go there at the moment, but we've got the stuff there. And if you're able to get there, even if it's part of the crew, so you're working with part of Dubai, part of the UK, there are options as well. So my job in that, assuming that the world opens up reasonably, is to generate some options for you, and then it'll be down to what time you've got, what leave you've got, costs. You know, we can reduce it as much as possible, but I'll generate as many options as I can.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention. I mean, it would be good if we could train together in Cyprus, but let's say the more, usually it is the case, the more annual leave we take before November, the less we have in November,
yeah,
if you know what I mean. Yeah.
So that'll be a case of me with the other coaches generating options, trying to make it as cost effective as possible, and then seeing what the uptake is. But if you know, as soon as we get the green light, there'll be no, me, I hope, there'll be no shortage of options. So if we're doing it, we're doing it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's full speed ahead, doing it until it's physically incapable. We're physically incapable of doing it because they cancel it. Yeah. Cat being sick over there, but obviously you think about paddling. Okay, right. Well, that's. I mean, they're all great questions and they're all valid questions, but all I can, to a certain extent, some of those questions I can only answer by saying, well, best case scenario, then this will be an option, that will be an option. But like I say, the boat, if in terms of Cyprus, the boats are there, the access is there, the water is there. I mean, at the moment, we're just negotiating access on they call them dams. It's a reservoir, but in the summer, the sea's beautiful anyway. But you see what I mean? So the infrastructure is in place. All we need to do is work out how we can get there, or how you can get there, even if you can come out for a weekend. So we've got O1s, we've got all sorts of stuff there. So it's all there. But that's one example. Okay, happy days. Happy days are here again. So that's over an hour now. So I'm conscious you know, it's okay for old retired blokes like me, but obviously you're working people. So let's do it, unless we've got any questions. Well, let's just do a quick go around the room then. Mike. So in between haymaker, man-maker exercises, any other points?
Yeah, I managed to go out on the water. Unfortunately, not on an O1 yet, but on my modular kayak, just to see how it is, and just collecting all the bits for the outrigger, and hopefully, yeah, it's going to happen soon.
Did you see my comment about your rudder?
No, I didn't see that one.
You don't actually need a rudder. A rudder just slows you down. The best way to turn a boat.
I know, but you know, if it's frozen in
the
wrong way, you know.
Okay, if it's rose the wrong way, but counter steer like a motorbike. Yeah, if I want to go that way, I lean I lean, and the machine stays upright.
Yeah,
So you
on the
lean
Thames, on the Thames, that's not so funny, I can tell you.
All paddle skills, mate. Anyway, no worries. Scotty.
No, just listening away, Tim, and just taking it all in.
There'll be a recording for catch up anyway. So yeah, no problem. Any questions or anything? If you think I'm talking gobbledygook, come and poke me in the chest and tell me, because that's what feedback is. Love feedback. Ian, any points?
No, it was useful. I said it's good to get some sort of feel of what you're thinking about. Yeah, good to get back on the water. That's yeah.
I've got to say, I mentioned this in where was I? Dubai earlier. This forum, you very rarely get the chance to actually sit down and really talk in this sort of detail about something. When you think about it, you go to a session, people want to warm up, they want to get on the water, they want to go paddling, they want to go home. So I think even when the lockdown is finished, I think I'll carry on doing, for the people I coach, something like this, really to drill into just the starts, or just in various tactical bits, just to get people's ideas, so because if they don't understand it, they won't buy into it.
You might have a lower turnout. We'll all be out training.
Well, absolutely, and by the absolutely. If you can get out training, then get out training. That's absolutely fine. Of course it is. That's your priority amongst all other things. Fine. Candy, how's your shoulder?
Yeah, I need to be sensible and patient and just let it heal. But you know, this meeting in particular has been really helpful because I really want to get out onto the water now. I had them before, but more to test out the shoulder. You know, if I can do push-ups here without any pain, I can't guarantee that it won't hurt if I'm on the water. So I just need to test it out in the different environments, and that's what I'm itching to do.
Yeah, but bear in mind, one's pulling, one pushing. But the most important thing I'm saying to a lot of people is, yeah, you may be keeping fit, but you won't be paddle fit. So what we really don't want you doing is going into a dragon boat and going, I'm in a dragon boat, go mad, and then get injured. And people are going to do this. I mean, hopefully not in this group, but they'll be doing that because you know they will. Okay, yeah. But what I found though, actually over the last month or so, I wouldn't say I wasn't really uncertain about any competitions going ahead. I'm thinking, oh blimey, we're just going through the motions. And actually, all the time, effort, and energy I've put in to try and motivate you lot, I've actually motivated myself massively. So it's had some positive effect on me as well. Anyway, enough of me. Nikki.
No, nothing more at the moment to add.
Any other great exercises? Tell me about them, yeah?
No, for the sake of the group, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Okay. Joe, any points?
No, your two fame A and B videos, they're good. They're good. I sat through them today. Again, a good reflection of what we went through Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So good. So if anyone else that can't attend on the Saturday mornings, go through those two videos. There's a lot to gain from them. So yeah, good work, mate.
Sadly, there's more to come because I like making them.
No, they are really good.
I can see that.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you think I like making videos? Do you think I'm a narcissist?
No.
Seriously.
You just have a lot to say, Tim.
Because
I think you're 50% maybe, but you also like to coach. I think that's why it is.
Because I was talking to you. I don't see that, and if I enjoy doing it. I like the communications piece. But if I really thought, I would be quite disappointed if people thought I was doing it just to say, "Hey, look at me! Look what I'm." No, it's not. It's really not about that.
No,
we get it.
I hope I'm right.
It's super helpful, super helpful.
But
I'm hoping a few people will see the value in them. But yes, it is a bit tongue in cheek. But
and I also must say that actually your choice of music is actually quite good, because I've seen really bad examples, and your choice of music is actually quite good.
Well, so how about that?
Negative feedback's always good to have, positive and negative, but the whistle is a bit harsh. That's
Right, okay. Well, at the whistle, actually, I've got a rucksack, and on my Henry discovered I had this rucksack 10 years, and Henry, my son, used it once, and on the buckle, it worked out the buckle's got a whistle on it. I didn't even know. So I thought maybe I'll find a more sweet-sounding whistle for you. Like maybe one of those things that comes
otherwise,
out.
top quality
Circus things.
Otherwise, yeah, no. So keep those coming, Tim. They are really appreciated. They do help Kat and I here. So yeah, keep them coming.
Okay, fine. At least one person in the world sees some value as worthwhile. Okay, brilliant. Kat, how's your foot?
That's all right, thank you. Not doing any burpees right now.
Right. Okay.
This is so exciting. Like getting to talk about actual racing is so exciting. We had another Zoom with the Outrigger Club on Monday night with Tony from New Zealand telling us how the different national outrigger races went in New Zealand in January. So that was set the scene as well.
Right.
When you're talking about getting the different teams together from the different countries, that bit gets really exciting. The idea of like meeting up in Cyprus is so cool. But I was wondering as well, like whether or not you reckon it would be feasible to have a Zoom with everybody at some point.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Dubai is 4 hours ahead and Hong Kong is 8 hours ahead. So what I want to do is within a few weeks have I mean, for example, what I'm planning is when we have the most people know anyway, the selection bit in terms of the talking about exactly what they are, certain things. I want to talk to everyone at the same time. Just find a time that hopefully suits everybody. That'll be impossible, but trying to get as many people on that, just so you start seeing the other names and the faces. And yeah, it's probably going to be more feasible to do a session with you and Dubai, and that at the moment, because they're out on the water, then I'm trying to work that out and work out some time. But yes, that's definitely in my mind, and that's definitely desirable. Yeah, so you're getting to know names and faces from different parts of the world. Absolutely, definitely. Okay, yeah. In the pipeline, I'm well, yeah, definitely not. I hope it's definitely okay. Then, thank you, and look after that foot. G.
Definitely I enjoy coming to this meeting. I like the bits when we talk about theories and technicals, because not being able to access the water makes me forget what I'm doing. But today I started thinking about my technique again. So thank you.
Right, okay, that's a gap, by the way. What's feeding? And last but not least, Tony.
Echo Joe, I actually enjoy the videos.
That's the cat's ass, sorry.
Good. And just to make you feel even better, my 11-year-old daughter does quite a lot of the training with me now. And she loves them. Today she had to go out with her mum, and she was going, can you wait until I come back till we do the routine? So you got another fan as well there.
Oh, yeah, great. I'm actually getting more into pure coaching this year, all in particular. In terms, it's not lifestyle coaching, but it's more the pure coaching for coaching's sake. And I'm not, the dragon boating is still important, but a lot of stuff we're doing now, not so much with this group, with other groups, you're actually supporting people psychologically. And the fact they have, so it's a dragon boat team I work with in Ireland, and they're not paddling at the moment. They're behind us in terms of vaccines, although they've only got 5 million over there, they'll overtake us. But the sessions we have there are just about looking after people, and the common denominator happens to be dragon boat. Isn't that bizarre? That's the way it goes. So yeah, so if some 11-year-olds like doing a few star jumps, great, all bodes well for the future.
Okay, then another up on the drum.
Well, that's how Henry started, and he ended up. He started as a drummer when he was 13, and ended up helming, well, paddled with the juniors, paddled with the Prems, and helmed the GB Premier team. Not because he's my son, because he's the best helm I've ever seen. He knows far more than I can teach him. But there you go. That's being young for you. Okay, enough of that nonsense. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye. Cheers.